A very good morning to Year 9. I hope you are keeping well. If you could just bear with me while I speak to you about 5 minutes or so on what I think is an extremely important matter and one which you need to listen carefully to. And that is how we treat the female half, if you like, of our school community. Mrs. Cooper spoke to you, of course, last week, I think it was, on an assembly about the same matter. I just want to add my thoughts and feelings on that too. I suppose the murder fairly recently of Sarah Everard in London, a young lady tragically killed by a serving Metropolitan Police officer, the tidal wave of emotion which followed that, you'll all be aware of. And of course, that quite rightly has opened people's eyes and minds and got us to consider this matter a lot more carefully. Because quite frankly, despite the fact in British society we feel like we've made progress on certain issues like gender and race, I don't think we have made as much progress as we believe us to be. So it's about what we can do in a school community. And on the back of Sarah Everard's murder, and quite justifiably, and we welcome that, a number of girls in school started to speak up. As I say, we welcome those conversations. And a group went to see Mrs. Cooper. She organised, they came to see me the week after, and since then there's been conversations with Mr. Tomlinson, Mrs. Cooper and others as well. And of course we had the Post-it note campaign, which not the best way of doing it, but I fully understand where you're coming from and I welcome that. I have to say I've got 2 teenage daughters at home. They have very similar strong views on the matter as well. So I know exactly where you are coming from. And the girls, I asked to produce some facts and some statements for me, and they duly did. And I won't read them all. There's pages here from people, and thank you also for the group who produced letters for Mrs. Cooper. But the one statistic which stands out for me is that 97% of young women who have been harassed or assaulted, I think it was before the age of 24 even, which is absolutely frightening and gobsmacking. Other things in there as well around the number of rape cases which go unprosecuted, even unreported, because women feel there's going to be no response, they're not being supported by the system. The number of issues of domestic violence, again, often unprosecuted. It just goes on and on and on. That's the bigger picture, and we have to change that gradually if we possibly can, but it starts here in school. So I asked them to recount to me things which they've experienced or people they know have experienced here at Wellington, and perhaps that's even more damning. But sexual comments about one's physical appearance and rating girls' bodies, name calling for various reasons, and I won't quote some of the names, but you know the sort of thing that goes on. Sexting, demanding or sending nude pictures, and the name calling if somebody doesn't respond the way you would like them to respond. The unwelcomed contact, physical contact. How dare you invade people's personal space and touch them without consent? It just doesn't bear thinking about. The general gossip going on about people and what they may or may not have done, often on social media. And perhaps most horrifying of all is jokes and comments around rape. One comment, for example, get to the back of the dinner queue, otherwise I'm going to rape you. I'm going to make you one of the 97%. These things are just totally and utterly unacceptable. And when I reflect on that, and this assembly, this little talk was going to be just for the boys, but it's important the girls hear my feelings as well. But as a man, and I'm conscious of being a white man and the privilege which comes with that, in what is still a pretty much patriarchal society, just gradually chipping away with that is our intent, of course. But I have a wife and a mother and a sister and a daughter, and I would be horrified if things were said to them. And of course, I would never dream of saying such a thing to those people. So why would we, gentlemen, say that to somebody else's girlfriend or daughter or sister or mother? Well, it's a rhetorical question because we shouldn't, and we shouldn't accept it. So that's the reality of the situation. Also, speaking to the girls, why should they have to walk a certain way home to avoid a dark area, walking past a building site with catcalling? Why should young women have to walk home with the keys between the knuckles in case they're assaulted and attacked? Why should they go to the toilets in pairs or groups in nightclubs, have to cover their drink to stop it being spiked? These things are happening on a regular basis and are completely and utterly unacceptable. So what do we do about it? Again, we have that phrase, don't we, at Wellington, to be an upstander, not a bystander. I have to say, there are some young ladies in the school who accept, they hear these comments being passed to other girls and do nothing about it. but boys standing by and saying and doing nothing in response. We have anti-bullying ambassadors, we have anti-racism ambassadors. What are we going to do to stop the treatment of these comments and these actions towards girls in the school? We've got to stand up and we've got to stamp it out. One of the responses, Mr. Cooper tells me, is forming a gender equality council. Lots of girls have put their names forward, but I hope, gents, you get involved as well. And can I just say, this idea when it all came about after the Sarah Everard murder, about, well, it's not all men. You're missing the point. It's like saying all lives matter when we were focusing on the Black Lives Matter and disproportionate number of black people being killed or discriminated in some way. And it's the same now. It's not all men doing these things, but we all have a responsibility to do something about it and to counter that. So I call upon every single one of the men or the boys in the school community to act upon what I'm saying now. It is about prevention and education and making you aware. And one telling comment by a young lady where she said, I don't want my brother to turn out like my dad in effect, or his generation, should we say, being accepting of things. So it's all about change and how that may happen. I thought it was a very telling remark by that young person. So I have to say, we want to prevent it happening. We want you to realise the impact of your comments and actions, gentlemen, and some girls. But if, I suppose it's a line in the sand, my words today, and if we can't respond in a way which basically asking for respect and treating people with dignity and having empathy for their situation, as we always ask for with all groups in the community, then sanctions will apply. And again, this gender discrimination, it can be a hate crime, as can race as well. But there'll be severe sanctions in school if we cannot treat every member of the school community, but I'm talking about girls now, with the respect and dignity which they deserve. So yes, let's open our minds, let's talk about it, let's have these difficult conversations, let's be educated, let's be aware. But I have to say, if there's any repeat of these things, then those young men can find themselves with some very severe sanctions. So please bear that in mind. I'd like to make idle threats and warnings, but that is a reality of the situation. So I hope you've engaged with what I've said today. I hope you've been listening. I hope it makes some kind of sense. Girls or boys, if you want to discuss this further with me or anybody else, please do so. My door's always open for conversation and let's talk it through. But we are a community and that comes with mutual respect. So please, let's make sure we see that moving forward. Okay, I didn't mean to go on for nearly 8 minutes, so I apologise for that, but I hope I've made some sense and please respond accordingly. Thank you, folks. Have a great day and have a great weekend when it comes.